The phone rang at the Riverside County Sheriff's Department just after 9 a.m. on October 15, 2008. A Marine sergeant hadn't shown up for work at Camp Pendleton, and his supervisor was worried. "He's not answering his cell," the caller said, urgency creeping into his voice. "That's not like Jan." Meanwhile, across town, a co-worker of Quiana Pietrzak dialed 911. "She didn't come to work today," the woman reported, her tone uneasy. "No one can reach her." Officer Matthew Hughes was dispatched to a quiet cul-de-sac in Winchester, California, for a welfare check. As he approached the modest single-story home, he noticed the front door ajar, a purse spilled across the threshold. His heart sank. What he would find inside would unravel a story so brutal, so unimaginable, that it would haunt the nation. Who could commit such a heinous act against a newlywed couple, and why? If you're drawn to true crime, to stories that expose the darkest corners of human nature, stay with me. You'll uncover a tale of love, betrayal, and a crime that shocked a community, and you'll be left questioning how such evil could lurk so close to home. Background and setup. Jan Pietrzak was born on March 13, 1984, in Poland, a country steeped in history and resilience. Named after Pope John Paul II, Jan carried a sense of purpose from a young age. When he was 11, his family immigrated to the United States, settling in the bustling, working-class neighborhood of Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. The events of September 11, 2001, struck a chord with the teenage Jan, igniting a fierce patriotism for his adopted country. "Mom, we live in this country. We have to give back," he told his mother, Henrika Varga, his voice firm with conviction. In 2003, at 19, Jan enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps, determined to serve. He trained as a helicopter airframe mechanic, deploying to Iraq from July 2005 to February 2006. His service was marked by dedication, earning him respect among his peers at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, near San Diego. Quiana Faye Jenkins was born on February 16, 1982, in San Bernardino, California. Raised in Ontario, she was a bright, compassionate woman with a heart for helping others. A graduate of Ayala High School, Quiana pursued higher education with ambition, earning a master's degree in public health from San Diego State University in 2005. She worked as a health education assistant for Riverside County's Black Infant Care Program, counseling expectant mothers and dreaming of one day becoming a doctor. Her co-workers described her as a beacon of warmth, always ready with a smile or a kind word. Quiana had this way of making everyone feel seen, one colleague later recalled. Jan and Quiana's paths crossed in Southern California, where their shared values of service and community drew them together. Jan, with his disciplined military bearing, and Quiana, with her infectious optimism, were a perfect match. Their love story culminated in a joyous wedding on August 8, 2008. "He cried when she walked down the aisle," Jan's friend Heidi Henson said, her voice catching at the memory. "He was just blown away by how beautiful she was." The couple settled into a new home in Winchester, a quiet, unincorporated community near Camp Pendleton. They purchased the house in French Valley, envisioning it as the foundation for their future, children, careers, and a life built together. Just 67 days after their wedding, that dream would be shattered. Winchester, in 2008, was a growing suburb, its streets lined with tidy homes and young families. The proximity to Camp Pendleton made it a haven for military couples like Jan and Quiana. But beneath the surface of this idyllic community, something sinister was brewing. 4 young Marines, Lance Corporal Emrys John, 18, from Maryland, Lance Corporal Kassan Sykes, 21, from California, Private Kevin Darnell Cox, 20, from Tennessee, and Lance Corporal Tyrone Miller, 20, from North Carolina, were plotting. 2 of them, John and Miller, served under Jan's command at Miramar. To outsiders, they were brothers in arms, bound by the Marine Corps' ethos of loyalty. But their intentions were far darker. The crime. October 15, 2008, began like any other day. Jan and Quiana went about their routines, Jan at the air station, Quiana at her job with the county. That evening, they returned to their home, unaware that danger was closing in. Around 8 p.m., the 4 Marines approached the house. Emrys John, described by investigators as manipulative and calculating, led the group. Their plan, initially, was robbery. Jan had recently re-enlisted, pocketing a $30,000 bonus, and word had spread among his unit. The group believed the couple's home held cash, jewelry, and valuables worth taking. But what began as a burglary quickly spiraled into a nightmare. The Marines forced their way inside, catching Jan and Quiana off guard. A brief struggle ensued. Jan, a trained Marine, fought back, but he was outnumbered. The intruders bound the couple with duct tape, their wrists and ankles secured tightly. Gags silenced their pleas. The home, once a sanctuary, became a chamber of horrors. Quiana was dragged to the living room, where she was sexually assaulted in front of her husband. Jan, helpless, was forced to watch, his heart breaking as his wife endured unimaginable cruelty. The assailants taunted them, their laughter echoing through the house. On the walls of the master bedroom and bathroom mirror, they spray-painted racial slurs, "nigger lover," a vicious jab at the interracial couple. The words were a grotesque attempt to dehumanize their victims, hinting at a deeper motive than mere theft. As the night wore on, the situation grew more desperate. The Marines poured gasoline and alcohol around the house, setting small fires in an attempt to destroy evidence. Then, in a final act of brutality, they executed Jan and Quiana, shooting each in the head. The gunfire rang out, a deafening end to their 67-day marriage. The perpetrators fled, taking with them jewelry, a camera, wedding gifts, and Jan's dress blue uniform. They left behind a scene of devastation, a ransacked home, a dumped purse, and 2 bodies lying lifeless in the living room. What drove these young men to such savagery? Was it greed, as they claimed, or something more sinister? As investigators would soon discover, the clues left behind would point to a betrayal that cut deeper than anyone could have imagined. The Criminal Cold Cases Investigation. The next morning, the absence of Jan and Quiana sparked concern. Jan's supervisor at Camp Pendleton alerted the Riverside County Sheriff's Department when he failed to report for duty. Quiana's co-workers, alarmed by her uncharacteristic absence, contacted police. Officer Matthew Hughes arrived at the couple's home around 9:30 a.m. The open front door and scattered purse contents were the first red flags. "Something's wrong here," Hughes radioed, calling for backup. As officers entered, the smell of gasoline hit them. In the living room, they found Jan and Quiana, bound and gagged, each with a gunshot wound to the head. The walls bore the hateful graffiti, and small burn marks suggested an attempt to torch the house. "It was like walking into a nightmare," one officer later said. The Riverside County Sheriff's Central Homicide Unit took the lead, with NCIS agents joining due to the military connection. Early clues pointed to multiple perpetrators. 3 distinct footprints were found at the scene, preserved in the dust and debris. "We knew we weren't looking for one guy," NCIS Special Agent Matt Timmons recalled. The footprints, the scale of the crime, it screamed multiple suspects. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood, but Winchester was quiet, with no eyewitnesses to the break-in. They turned their attention to Camp Pendleton, where Jan worked. Interviews with Jan's unit revealed a name that kept surfacing: Lance Corporal Tyrone Miller. Miller, one of Jan's subordinates, claimed to be a mentor figure, but his story unraveled under scrutiny. "I was home with my wife and kids that night," he initially told detectives, his tone casual. But when pressed, his account shifted. First, he'd never been to Jan's house. Then, he admitted visiting months earlier with his wife. Finally, he said he'd driven by, about 2 weeks ago, with friends. His vague responses raised suspicions. When asked about his clothing, Miller mentioned wearing Jordans and Chucks, Air Force Ones, brands that matched one of the crime scene footprints. "That was our first break," Timmons said. He was slipping. A search warrant for Miller's residence on Camp Pendleton proved pivotal. Investigators found a gold bracelet inscribed with Jan and Quiana's names, Jan's dress blue uniform hanging in the closet, and a Beretta 92 FS 9mm pistol, the murder weapon. In a black backpack, they discovered blue bandanas and Mechanics brand gloves, one of which matched a glove seen on ATM surveillance footage where Quiana's bank card was used. The evidence was piling up, prosecutor Daniel de Limon later said. It was like they didn't even try to cover their tracks. Attention turned to the other suspects. Emerus John's residence yielded a pair of shoes with Jan's blood on them. Kevin Cox's home contained more stolen items, including wedding gifts. Kassan Sykes, the fourth suspect, had reportedly confessed to cutting Quiana's clothes off during the assault. All 4 were arrested, each pointing fingers at the others. John's MySpace page added a chilling detail. Shortly before the murders, he posted, "Chillin' waitin' for da killin'." The premeditation was undeniable. But a question lingered. Was this just a robbery gone wrong, as the suspects claimed, or was there a racial motive? The slurs on the walls suggested hate, yet Riverside County authorities maintained the primary motive was financial. There's nothing to suggest this was a racial crime, a sheriff's spokesperson said in November 2008. The victims' families disagreed. If it was a robbery, why come in the dead of night, armed to the teeth? Jan's mother, Henrika, wrote in a letter to President-elect Obama. What was it about my son and daughter-in-law that inspired such hatred? The racial epithets and the brutality of the assault fueled speculation. but prosecutors focused on the robbery angle, citing the stolen items. What do you think? Was this a simple theft escalated by greed, or did deeper prejudices drive the violence? Pause and consider the evidence so far: the slurs, the military connection, the premeditation. What's the real motive here? Investigation continued. The investigation pressed forward, with forensic evidence tightening the noose. DNA from Quiana was found on the mechanic's gloves in Miller's possession. Shoe impressions matched those of John, Miller, and Cox. A fellow Marine provided crucial testimony, revealing details about the suspect's plans that had never been publicized. He knew things only someone involved would know, de Limon said. The suspect's conflicting stories didn't help. Miller and Cox confessed to the murders but denied the rape, each blaming the others. John was named the shooter by 3 of the group, though he denied it. Sykes admitted to the assault but claimed he didn't fire the gun. By early 2009, the case was ready for trial. District Attorney Rod Pacheco, after meeting with the victims' families, announced he would seek the death penalty. This wasn't just murder, he told reporters. It was torture, betrayal, and savagery. Preliminary hearings in March and April 2009 laid out the evidence: the stolen items, the footprints, the DNA, and the racial slurs. The defense argued the suspects were young, impulsive, and driven by financial desperation, but the prosecution's case was ironclad. What would you do if you were on the jury? The evidence is overwhelming, but the motive remains murky. Would you see this as a hate crime, or accept the robbery narrative? Let's move to the courtroom and see how justice unfolded. Outcome and aftermath. The trials began in 2013, with Cox, John, and Miller tried together, though Cox had a separate jury. On June 5, 2013, all 3 were convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, with special circumstances for murder during a robbery, burglary, and multiple murders. John was found guilty of firing the fatal shots, Miller of the sexual assault. Cox's jury deliberated separately, convicting him of the same charges. In the penalty phase, prosecutors presented a slideshow of Jan and Quiana's lives, their childhoods, their wedding, their dreams, ending with the crime scene and their funeral. What was it like to know the end was coming and there was no escape? De Limon asked the jury, his voice heavy with emotion. John and Miller were sentenced to death, while Cox received life without parole. Kassan Sykes, tried separately, was convicted in August 2014 of first-degree murder and special circumstances for robbery, burglary, and rape by instrument. His penalty phase began August 11, 2014, and he too was sentenced to death. All 4 were sent to San Quentin State Prison, their appeals ongoing as of 2025. The case left a deep scar on Winchester and the Marine Corps. The betrayal of a sergeant by his own men shook the military community. Jan was their leader, a fellow Marine said. They were supposed to trust him, not destroy him. The murders prompted changes at Camp Pendleton: enhanced psychological evaluations for recruits, increased financial literacy training, and stronger oversight of unit dynamics. Jan and Quiana's families established scholarships in their names, supporting young people in military and social work careers. Annual memorial services keep their memory alive, a reminder of their love and sacrifice. Public reaction was intense. Blogs and forums buzzed with debate over the racial motive. "Those slurs weren't random," one commenter wrote. "This was personal." Others agreed with the official narrative, pointing to the stolen items as proof of robbery. The victims' mothers, Henrica Varga and Faye Jenkins, sought an audience with President Obama, hoping to discuss how Jan and Quiana's deaths could unite communities. The response was a form letter, later followed by an apology after public outcry. "We just wanted their story to mean something," Faye said, tears in her eyes. What's your take? Should the racial motive have been pursued more aggressively, or was the focus on robbery justified? The evidence is clear, but the why remains a shadow over this case. Closing reflection. Jan and Quiana Pietrzak's story is one of love cut short by unimaginable cruelty. Their home, meant to be a haven, became a stage for betrayal and violence. The loss of this vibrant couple, Jan, the proud Marine who served his country, Quiana, the compassionate counselor who uplifted her community, reminds us that evil can strike even in the safest places. Their legacy lives on in the scholarships and memorials, but also in the questions we're left with. How do we prevent such betrayals? Can justice ever fully heal the wounds of such a crime? As we honor Jan and Quiana, we're challenged to look closer at those around us, to question the motives beneath the surface, and to hold fast to the love that binds us, even in the face of darkness.